Hey y'all. So this video can be viewed as a follow-up to the draft day one, I guess. I briefly mentioned Moneyball at the end, so I figured I'd make a video on that film at some point, and definitely not just adapt an essay I made for my cinema class I took back in spring. Also, based on the comments I received on the aforementioned draft day video, some of you may prefer that film over this one. All I have to say about that is, get the f*** out, man! We glazing this bitch. Moneyball is a 2011 sports drama starring Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill, both non-controversial actors. Unlike most sports dramas, this film does not explore the lives of the players on the field. Rather, this film dramatizes the front office of the 2002 Oakland Athletics baseball team. Instead of the lead character being a star pitcher or a baseball manager, the character that serves as the primary focus of the film is the general manager, Billy Beane. Fun name, by the way. Honestly, there are much more scenes that take place in the offices of the Oakland Coliseum than on the actual field of the Coliseum. While this may sound like a much more mundane film compared to others in the subgenre, think Major League, A League of Their Own, or fucking Ed. The narrative structure and sharp dialogue found in the script, as well as the idea of fully embracing new ways to do things, make this film much more enthralling than it should be on paper. It may not be a completely accurate representation of how the 2002 Athletics operated behind the scenes, but the writers of this adapted screenplay, Steve Zaillian and Aaron Sorkin, managed to turn this into an extremely intriguing dramatization. This film is less about the act of playing baseball and more about bucking conventional wisdom to find success. Billy Beane rejects the standard eye test approach and tries to embrace the analytical approach that was introduced to him by recent Yale grad Peter Brand, a fictionalized version of Paul DePodesta written for this film. This approach emphasizes the player's ability to reach first base, not about home runs or RBIs. As this film highlights more of the struggles of outsmarting a trend, there's not really a traditional antagonist in this story. I guess you can also say that means there's not much of a traditional protagonist either. The antagonists of this film are the traditional, antiquated methods that baseball teams were constructed on at this time, while the protagonist is the new way of analyzing each player's efficiency of play in order to build a roster up. Billy and Peter simply serve as vessels of the protagonist, while people like field manager Art Howe serve as a vessel of the antagonist. The plot may be themed around the Oakland Athletics 2002 season, but the plot is about Billy desperately trying to legitimize this new way of thinking regarding scouting and roster building. While it would seem at first glance that Moneyball follows a 3-act structure, I would argue that it actually consists of 4 acts. The first act is of course an introduction to all of the important characters and where the drive of the plot is set up. The Oakland Athletics lost a large batch of talented players in their offseason, and Billy needs to figure out a way to build up a winning team on a small budget. That is the drive. Billy is introduced as the primary protagonist, with Peter later being introduced as the secondary protagonist. Peter's theories about how the player market should be evaluated influences Billy, setting up Act 2. In the second act, Billy tries to implement Peter's preferred method of building a roster while angering the more traditional staff members of the organization in the process. The team experiences a lot of losses due to a lack of cooperation and cohesion in the organization to achieve Billy's vision, which leads Billy to make some drastic moves to force everyone else to follow his lead. This is where Act 2 ends, even though it looks like it should continue here. That is because Act 3 shows how the team can be successful when everyone is on the same page. Once roster moves are made that forces Art Howe to make lineups that align with Billy and Peter's vision, the team goes on an upward trajectory. In the process, Billy shows personal growth from the fact that he begins speaking with players personally to advise them on how to be as effective as possible when on the field, going against his previous stance of maintaining distance from the players, as that made it easier for him to trade them away if need be. This act, and the film as a whole, reaches its climax when Scott Hatteberg, a player that Billy signed explicitly for this Moneyball experiment, hits a walk-off home run to win the A's their 20th consecutive game, an American League record. Unfortunately, this act does not end on a high note, as the Athletics are later shown losing in the divisional series of the playoffs. This is where the third act ends and the fourth act begins, because the story continues after the season. The fourth act serves as, I guess you could say, an extended epilogue. The fourth act serves as an extended epilogue, with Billy interviewing for a job with the Boston Red Sox and ruminating in personal failure as he believed the season would have only been a success if the Athletics won the World Series. Peter, who has shown to be a more emotionally reserved character, shows Billy that it's okay to be satisfied with personal successes.
Jeremy's gonna do what he never does. He's gonna go for it. He's gonna round first, and he's gonna go for it. This is all of Jeremy's nightmares coming to life.
Oh, they're laughing at him.
Jeremy's about to realize that the ball went 60 feet over the fence.
And he does not need to inspire widespread change to experience success. The fourth and final act concludes with Billy staying in Oakland, and the Red Sox later winning the 2004 World Series using Billy's roster building strategies, showing that Billy did ultimately inspire change in the league. Now, obviously, this film would not be as memorable if not for its impressive use of dialogue. The dialogue in this film reveals the personality of each major character. Billy shows himself to be of a confident and rhetorically powerful temperament, utilizing metaphors to establish understanding and speaking in a blunt tone to establish authority.
The problem we're trying to solve is that there are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. It's an unfair game. Now we've been gutted, like organ donors for the rich. Boston's taking our kidneys, Yankees taking our heart, and you guys are sitting around talking the same old good body nonsense like we're selling jeans. We are the last dog at the bowl. You see what happens to the runt of the litter? He dies.
Peter, meanwhile, displays a reserved and analytical persona whenever he speaks. Whenever he tries to speak about himself, Peter tries to use as few words as possible. When talking about the baseball player market, Peter is incredibly detailed in explaining his theories and thought processes when evaluating players. This is most clearly evident in his impromptu evaluation of Johnny Damon that he gives to Billy, which ultimately inspires Billy to bring him onto his staff.
You're trying to replace Johnny Damon. The Boston Red Sox see Johnny Damon and they see a star who's worth $7.5 million a year. What I see is an imperfect understanding of where runs come from. He's a decent leadoff hitter. He can steal bases, but is he worth the $7.5 million a year that the Boston Red Sox are paying him? No.
So, Moneyball managed to be an engaging film about a sport while showing very little footage of said sport being played. It turns a story about a baseball team into a story about evolution and fully embracing unorthodoxy. The structure follows the foundation, early struggles, success and failure, and overall impact that this team has had on the league. I guess you could say the main takeaway from this movie is that success can be found in unexpected places, even in failure. This is why Moneyball is probably my favorite sports film. It did not follow the archetype of what sports films had been up to that point, and still managed to be incredibly compelling, which I guess is kind of the point with the story it was trying to tell. So, good job. It succeeded on both ends of that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you when I see you.